The dark emptiness of space surrounded the massive human warship Vengeance as it moved slowly through the outer edges of the solar system. The ship was huge, nearly 2 miles long, its black metal hull covered with weapon ports and sensor arrays. It was the pride of Earth's defense fleet, built after humans learned they were not alone in the universe. Captain John Baker stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back as he stared at the main screen. He was a tall man with short, gray hair and tired blue eyes. 20 years in space had made him tough but fair. The crew respected him. "Status report," John said, his voice calm despite the tension in the air. "All systems normal, Captain," replied First Officer Mary Johnson from her station. She was younger than John, with dark skin and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "The alien fleet is still on course toward Earth. They will reach Mars in 6 hours. John nodded. He had hoped it wouldn't come to this. The aliens, a race called the Krell, had appeared 3 weeks ago. They sent no messages, just started destroying human outposts. The moon base was gone. The Mars colonies too. Millions dead. "And our new weapon?" John asked. Chief Engineer Pete Wilson looked up from his console. "The Nova cannon is ready, sir. Power levels are stable, but we've never tested it at full strength before." "Let's hope it works as designed," John said. The Nova cannon was Earth's secret weapon. Scientists had worked on it for 10 years using strange technology found in an ancient ship buried on Mars. No one fully understood how it worked, but tests showed it could destroy an entire planet if needed. "Message from Earth Command, sir," called Communications Officer Lisa Brown. Her fingers moved quickly over her screen. "They say the evacuation ships are away. Earth's major cities are empty. We have permission to engage the enemy." John took a deep breath. This would be the first time humans fought an interstellar war. Everything depended on the Vengeance and its crew of 200 men and women. "Put me on shipwide," John ordered. Lisa nodded and pressed a button. "You're on, sir." "Attention all crew," John began, his voice echoing through every part of the huge ship. "This is Captain Baker. As you know, we face an enemy that wants to destroy humanity. They've shown no mercy. They've killed millions of our people. Today, we show them that humans will not die quietly." He paused, looking around at his bridge crew. They were scared but ready. "We will engage the Krell fleet in 1 hour. Our mission is to stop them at any cost. If we fail, Earth may fall. I know each of you will do your duty. Baker out." The ship became busy with activity as all crew prepared for battle. In the engine room, Pete and his team checked and double-checked the Nova cannon. In the medical bay, Dr. Sandra Martinez prepared for casualties. In the fighter launch bays, pilots climbed into their small, fast ships. "Enemy ships now visible," reported Sensor Officer Greg Evans. "I count 30 large vessels and over 100 smaller craft." On the main screen, the Krell fleet appeared. Their ships were strange, with curved shapes that looked like sea creatures. They glowed with a sickly green light. "They're heading straight for Earth," Mary said. "No change." "In course," John nodded. "Take us in, battle speed." The massive engines of the Vengeance roared to life, pushing the warship toward the alien fleet. As they approached, smaller human ships joined them, fighters and destroyers, the last line of defense for Earth. "Enemy is launching fighters," Greg reported. "Hundreds of them." "Launch our fighters," John ordered. "All weapons ready. Target the lead ship." Space lit up as the battle began. Human fighters clashed with alien craft, explosions flashing like small stars being born and dying in seconds. The Vengeance fired its regular weapons, huge beams of energy that tore through several smaller alien ships. But the Krell kept coming. Their weapons hit the Vengeance, making the whole ship shake. "Shields down to 60%, called Damage Control Officer Ben Harper. "We can't take too much more of this." A massive blast hit the human warship, throwing people from their stations. Sparks flew from damaged consoles. Smoke filled parts of the bridge. "Shields at 40%, Ben reported, blood running from a cut on his forehead. Multiple hull breaches on lower decks. Medical reports heavy casualties. John helped Mary back to her feet. We need to use the Nova cannon now, he said. But sir, Mary protested, we're too close to Mars. The weapon might damage the planet. If we don't stop them here, Earth is next, John replied. Prepare the Nova cannon. Pete's voice came over the comm system. Nova cannon ready, Captain. But I must warn you, the power readings are higher than expected. This thing might be stronger than we thought. Understood, John said. Target the center of the Krell fleet. The front of the Vengeance opened slowly, revealing a massive cannon barrel. Energy gathered there, glowing brighter and brighter until it hurt to look at it. Fire, John ordered. The Nova cannon released its energy in a blinding flash. The beam cut through space, striking the center of the Krell fleet. What happened next shocked everyone on the bridge. The beam didn't just destroy the target ship. It kept going, expanding outward in a wave of energy that consumed every Krell vessel it touched. The aliens tried to flee, but the energy moved too fast. In seconds, the entire Krell fleet was gone, leaving nothing but floating debris. But the energy didn't stop. It continued outward, reaching the surface of Mars. Where it touched, the ground turned black. Cities, research stations, mountains, all vanished. My God, whispered Mary. What have we done? John watched in horror as the red planet turned dark, in patches. The weapon was far more powerful than anyone had expected. It wasn't just destroying ships, it was destroying everything. Shut it down, John shouted into the comm. Pete, shut down the cannon. I'm trying, sir. Pete's voice was panicked. The system won't respond, it's still drawing power. The Nova cannon continued to fire, its beam now moving past Mars toward the inner planets. The crew of the Vengeance could only watch as their weapon, meant to save humanity, began to threaten everything in its path. The war against the Krell was being won, but at what cost? John Baker realized with growing dread that he might have just saved Earth from aliens only to threaten it with something far worse, a human weapon they couldn't control. The Nova cannon continued to fire, its energy beam cutting through space. The bridge of the Vengeance was silent except for the urgent voices of crew members trying to shut down the weapon. Engineering report, Captain John Baker shouted into his comm. Pete's voice came back, filled with panic. We've tried everything, Captain. The power source is growing stronger on its own. It's like it's feeding on itself. John turned to Mary. Options? First Officer Mary Johnson's face was pale but determined. We could try to change the direction of the beam. If we can't shut it down, maybe we can point it away from the inner planets. Do it, John ordered. Mary rushed to the navigation console. Helm hard to starboard, full thrust on port engines. The massive warship began to turn slowly, fighting against the force of the still-firing cannon. The beam swept across the Martian surface, leaving more destruction in its path. Communications, warn Earth, John said to Lisa. Tell them what's happening and to prepare for possible evacuation. Lisa nodded, her fingers flying over her console. Channel open to Earth Command, sir. John took a deep breath. This is Captain Baker of the Vengeance. The Nova cannon has exceeded design parameters and we cannot shut it down. We are attempting to redirect the weapon away from Earth, but you should begin emergency preparations immediately. The response came quickly. Understood, Vengeance. All major cities are already evacuated due to the Krell threat. What's happening to Mars? John looked at the main screen showing the red planet. Large parts of its surface were now black, as if someone had taken a giant eraser to the landscape. The weapon is changing the planet, John replied. Everything it touches is being destroyed down to the molecular level. Greg spoke up from his sensor station. Captain, I'm detecting strange energy readings from the affected areas of Mars. It's like the planet's matter is being converted into some kind of energy that's feeding back into our weapon. So the more it destroys, Mary began. The stronger it gets, John finished. His face hardened. We need to get this ship as far away from populated areas as possible. The ship continued its slow turn as the Nova cannon kept firing. The beam, now pointed away from the inner planets, shooting out toward the endless darkness between Mars and Jupiter. New course plotted, sir, Mary reported. We're heading out of the solar system on a path that avoids all known colonies and outposts. John nodded. Maximum speed. The engines of the Vengeance roared even louder as the ship accelerated. But the weapon showed no signs of stopping. "Pete, can we disconnect the cannon somehow?" John asked over the comm. "Not without blowing up the whole ship," Pete replied. "The power conduits are fused. This thing has rewired our systems somehow." "Doctor," Sandra Martinez called up from the medical bay. "Captain, we have 37 injured crew members down here, 3 in critical condition from electrical burns. We need to know if we should prepare for evacuation." John closed his eyes briefly. 200 people under his command, and a weapon that could destroy planets pointed at the heart of human civilization. "No evacuation yet, Doctor. Keep treating the wounded. We're trying to get the ship away from Earth." Ben spoke up from damage control. "Sir, the ship's structural integrity is being compromised by the continued firing. Hull stress is approaching critical levels in sections near the cannon." "Reinforce those sections," John ordered. "Divert power from non-essential systems." Ari stepped closer to John, lowering her voice. "Sir, we may need to consider destroying the ship." John looked at her sharply. "That's 200 lives, Officer Johnson, versus billions on Earth if we lose control of our course," she replied quietly. "I don't like it either, sir." Before John could respond, Greg called out from his station. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange. The beam just hit something out there." On the main screen, a flash of light appeared where the Nova Cannon's energy beam struck something invisible in space. "What is that?" John asked. "There shouldn't be anything there." "It appears to be some kind of cloaked object," Greg reported. "Large, very large, about the size of our moon." As they watched, the invisible object began to appear as the cannon's energy disrupted its cloaking technology. It was massive and artificial, a structure of metal and strange crystalline materials. "Is it Krell?" Mary asked. Greg studied his readings. "I don't think so. The design is completely different. And it's old, very old, based on the materials I'm detecting." The beam from the Nova Cannon continued to hit the giant structure, causing parts of it to break apart. "It's some kind of space station," John said, watching as more of it became visible. "Or a ship." Suddenly, Lisa called out from communications. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the structure." "Put it through," John ordered. A strange voice filled the bridge, speaking in a language no one understood. It sounded mechanical, but with an undertone of panic. "Run it through the translation system," John told Lisa. After a few moments, words in English replaced the alien sounds. "Weapon activation detected. Containment protocols failing. Guardian station compromised. Warning to all Sentinel races. Ancient prison breaking down. The Devourers must not escape. Repeat, the Devourers must not escape." The message repeated, growing more distorted each time as the Nova Cannon continued to tear apart the structure. "Cut the beam," John shouted. "Whatever that thing is, we're breaking it." "We can't control the weapon, sir," Mary reminded him. "But I think we've just found out why the Nova Cannon is so powerful. That technology we found on Mars, it didn't belong to some random ancient civilization." John nodded slowly, understanding dawning on his face. "It was a weapon designed to contain something called the Devourers. And we just built it into our ship without understanding what it was," Mary added. As they watched, the giant structure in space began to break apart more rapidly. Through the gaps in its hull, strange lights appeared, moving in patterns that seemed almost alive. "Captain," Greg said, his voice shaking slightly, "I'm detecting life signs from inside that structure. Thousands, no, millions of them, and they're waking up." John Baker stood on the bridge of the most powerful human warship ever built, watching as an ancient prison broke open before his eyes. The Krell invasion suddenly seemed like a small problem compared to what they might have just unleashed. "All hands," he said quietly. "Prepare for the real war." Alarms blared throughout the Vengeance as the ancient prison structure continued to break apart. The Nova Cannon's beam still cut through space, now hitting pieces of debris that scattered in all directions. "Shields up," Captain John Baker ordered. "Brace for impact." A chunk of the alien structure smashed against the warship's shields, making the entire vessel shudder. Shields holding at 30%, Ben reported from damage control. But we can't take many more hits like that. On the main screen, strange lights poured out from the broken prison. They moved like living things gathering together in swirling patterns. What are they? Mary asked, her eyes wide as she watched the lights form into larger, more organized shapes. Greg studied his sensor readings. They appear to be energy-based life forms. No solid matter that I can detect. They're unlike anything in our database. Another message came through the translation system. Warning, Devourer containment failure. Repeat, Devourers escaping containment. All Sentinel species initiate emergency protocol Omega. The message is broadcasting on all frequencies, Lisa said. It's like a general alarm to anyone who might be listening. John looked at the growing cloud of energy beings. So these are the Devourers, and that structure was a prison built to hold them. Captain, Greg called out, the energy beings are moving toward Mars. They're heading for the areas affected by our weapon. On the screen, they watched as the swarm of lights descended on the blackened areas of Mars. Where they touched, the darkness seemed to disappear, replaced by the swirling energy patterns. They're feeding on it, Mary said. On whatever our weapon transformed the surface into. And getting stronger, Greg added. Their energy signatures are growing more intense. John turned to communications. Lisa, send a message to Earth. Tell them what's happening and that they need to prepare for a new threat. These devourers seem to consume energy and our cities are full of it. As Lisa sent the message, Pete's voice came over the comm from engineering. Captain, I think I have a way to shut down the Nova cannon, but you're not going to like it. At this point, I'll take anything, John replied. We need to overload it, Pete explained. Force too much power through the system too quickly. It should burn out the connections. But it might also destroy the ship. John looked around at his crew. They were scared but determined, each of them ready to do what was necessary. How long do you need? John asked. 10 minutes to reroute power systems, Pete said. Then maybe another 5 to build up the overload. Do it, John ordered. Everyone else prepare for possible evacuation. Check the escape pods and make sure the injured can be moved. Mary stepped closer to John. Sir, if we destroy the Nova cannon now, what happens to those things? The Devourers are already free. One problem at a time, Officer Johnson, John replied. First, we get control of our ship back. The next 10 minutes passed slowly. The Devourers continued to spread across Mars, consuming the transformed areas. More pieces of the broken prison drifted through space, occasionally hitting the Vengeance's weakening shields. Evacuation preparations complete, Mary reported. Medical has the injured ready to move. All non-essential personnel are standing by at the escape pods. John nodded. Good. Now we wait for Pete. Captain, Greg called from his station. The Devourers are finishing with Mars. They're changing direction. On the screen, the cloud of energy beings began to move away from the red planet. Their new course was clear. They're heading toward Earth, John said grimly. How fast? Mary asked. Greg checked his readings. At their current speed, they'll reach Earth in about 6 hours. Lisa turned from her communications console. Sir, Earth Command is reporting unusual power fluctuations in all major grid systems, and they've received a transmission. From who? John asked. From the Krell, Lisa said, surprise in her voice. They're requesting to speak with us. John hesitated. The Krell had started this war, destroying human outposts without warning or mercy, but now? Put them through, he decided. The main screen changed to show a Krell commander. The alien was tall and insect-like, with multiple eyes and a hard outer shell. It spoke, the words translated into English. Humans, the ancient enemy is free. We came to your system to prevent this. We detected the prison weakening and tried to stop you before you could break it open. John stared at the alien. You attacked us without warning. You killed millions of our people. We tried to communicate, the Krell replied. Your kind did not understand. There was no time for long explanations. The Devourers must be contained again before they regain their full strength. Why should we trust you? Mary asked. Because we have faced them before, the Krell said. Long ago, the Devourers nearly destroyed all life in this part of the galaxy. Many species worked together to imprison them. The Krell were among those guardians. We have kept watch for thousands of years. John thought quickly. If the Krell were telling the truth, humanity had accidentally unleashed something terrible, but the aliens had still attacked Earth without proper communication. Captain, Pete's voice broke in over the comm. The overload is ready. But I've discovered something else. The Nova Cannon isn't just destroying matter, it's converting it into the same type of energy that makes up those creatures. We're basically feeding them with every shot. John looked back at the Krell on the screen. You know these Devourers. How do we stop them? They must be contained again, the Krell replied. The prison was built using technology that can hold their energy form. Some of that technology was what you found on Mars. What you built into your weapon. Understanding dawned on John's face. So our Nova Cannon could be used to rebuild the prison? Yes, the Krell confirmed. But it must be reconfigured. We have the knowledge. You have the weapon. We must work together now, or all our worlds will fall. John Baker, captain of humanity's most powerful warship, faced a difficult decision. Trust the aliens who had been killing humans just hours ago, or face the Devourers alone. Pete, he said into the comm, hold off on the overload. We're going to try something else. But sir, Pete protested, those energy creatures are getting stronger by the minute. I know, John replied, and we're going to use our weapon to put them back in their cage. He turned to Lisa. Tell the Krell we accept their help, but make it clear, once this is over, they have a lot to answer for. As the Vengeance altered course to intercept the swarm of Devourers, John wondered if humanity had just jumped from one war straight into another, and which enemy was truly the greater threat. The Vengeance moved through space on an intercept course with the swarm of Devourers. On the bridge, humans worked side by side with Krell engineers. It was a strange sight. Just hours ago, they had been trying to kill each other. The modifications to the Nova Cannon are at 60%, reported Pete from engineering. A tall Krell stood next to him, its many-fingered hands moving over human control panels with surprising skill. Captain John Baker watched the main screen, where the cloud of energy beings continued to move toward Earth. They were growing larger and more organized by the minute. How much time do we have? John asked. Greg checked his sensors. 4 hours until they reach Earth, but they're speeding up. The more energy they absorb, the faster they move. The lead Krell engineer, who called itself Zakrath, stepped forward. Its hard exoskeleton clicked against the metal floor of the bridge. The weapon must be reconfigured to create a containment field, it explained in its translated voice. Instead of destroying matter, it will create a space where the Devourers cannot exist in our dimension. Like the prison we destroyed, Mary said. Yes, Zakrath confirmed. That structure was built by many species working together long ago. The Devourers almost consumed all life in this part of the galaxy before they were stopped. John frowned. And you couldn't just tell us this when you arrived? You had to attack our colonies? The Krell's multiple eyes blinked in sequence. We tried to communicate. Your species did not understand our warnings. We detected the ancient technology being activated on Mars. There was no time. We believed destroying your outposts would stop you from fully activating the weapon. Well, that plan didn't work out so well, John said dryly. Lisa called out from communications. Captain, Earth reports widespread power outages. The power grid is failing in major cities across the planet. The Devourers can affect technology from a distance, Zakrath explained. They feed on energy in all its forms. They are drawn to it. John turned to Mary. Status of our evacuation preparations? Escape. Pods are ready, she reported. But with the Krell helping us modify the Nova Cannon, I've put evacuation on hold. Good, John nodded. If this works, we won't need to abandon ship. Pete's voice came over the comm again. Captain, we've got a problem. The Nova Cannon's power source is unstable. The Krell modifications are working, but the energy output is fluctuating wildly. Explain, John demanded. The weapon is tied into our main systems now, Pete said. If it fails when we fire, it could take the whole ship with it. John looked at Zakrath. Is there another way? The Krell was silent for a moment. No. The prison must be rebuilt. The Devourers must be contained. There is no other known way to stop them. John made his decision. Continue with the modifications. All non-essential personnel to escape pods. If this goes wrong, I want as many people safe as possible. As crew members began to leave their stations, John turned to Mary. You should go too. Coordinate the evacuation. Mary straightened her back. With respect, sir, my place is here. Someone needs to help you pilot this ship if things go sideways. John didn't argue. He knew that stubborn look in her eyes. The next 3 hours passed in tense work. The Vengeance drew closer to the swarm of Devourers, which had now formed into a massive cloud of swirling energy. The ship's sensors could detect the edges of Earth's atmosphere beginning to react to the creature's approach. Modifications complete, Pete finally reported. The Nova cannon is now configured to generate a containment field instead of a destruction beam, but it's drawing power from every system on the ship, including life support. We'll only have one shot at this. Understood, John replied. He turned to the bridge crew, now reduced to just a handful of officers and 2 Krell. This is it. If we fail, Earth falls. If we succeed, we save 2 civilizations. The Vengeance moved into position directly between Earth and the approaching Devourers. The massive swarm seemed to sense the ship's intention as it began to speed up, racing toward them. They know what we're trying to do, Greg said. They're coming straight for us. Weapons ready, John ordered. All power to the Nova cannon. The lights on the bridge dimmed as power was diverted to the weapon. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting red shadows over the tense faces of the crew. Nova cannon charged and ready, Pete reported. Firing solution locked on the center of the swarm. John took a deep breath. Fire. The modified Nova cannon activated with a deep rumble that shook the entire ship. But instead of a destructive beam, it projected a sphere of strange, shimmering energy. The sphere expanded rapidly, growing to encompass the approaching swarm of Devourers. On the bridge, screens flickered and control panels sparked as the ship's systems were pushed beyond their limits. The hull groaned under the strain. It's working, Greg shouted over the noise. The Devourers are being pulled into the containment field. The swirling cloud of energy beings fought against the pull of the field. But one by one, they were drawn in. The sphere grew darker as more Devourers were captured, their light dimming as the prison took effect. Hull integrity failing, Ben called out from damage control. We can't maintain this power output much longer. John gripped his chair as the ship shuddered violently. Hold it together. Just a little longer. With a final surge of power, the containment field collapsed inward, compressing the Devourers into a small, dense sphere about the size of a small moon. The sphere hardened, its surface becoming solid and dark, much like the prison they had. Destroyed. Containment field stable? Pete reported, his voice weak with exhaustion. The Devourers are trapped again? A cheer went up from the remaining crew members. Even the Krell made clicking sounds that might have been their version of celebration. But the victory was short-lived. Warning alarms blared throughout the ship. Multiple system failures, Ben reported. Engines offline, life support failing. We're dead in space, Captain. John looked at the newly formed prison floating before them. They had saved Earth, but at what cost? Begin emergency repairs, he ordered. And send a message to Earth. Tell them we were successful, but we need immediate assistance. As crew members rushed to carry out his orders, John turned to Zakrath. What happens now? Between our people? The Krell commander's translated voice was solemn. We misjudged your species, Captain Baker. We did not think humans would sacrifice themselves to save others. Perhaps there is much our peoples can learn from each other. John looked out at the stars, at distant Earth shining blue and green. and at the dark sphere that contained a threat older than human civilization. "If we survive this," he said, "I think we have a lot to talk about." 3 weeks passed since the Vengeance trapped the Devourers in their new prison. The damaged warship drifted in space, its crew working day and night to make repairs. Earth had sent help, 3 smaller ships carrying supplies, repair teams, and medical staff. They orbited around the Vengeance, ferrying people and equipment back and forth. Captain John Baker stood in what remained of the engine room. The walls were blackened from electrical fires. Wires hung from the ceiling. Engineers moved about, human and Krell working side by side. "Will it ever fly again?" John asked Pete, who was covered in grease and looking tired. "Yes, but she'll never be the same," Pete replied, patting a damaged control panel like it was an injured animal. "We can get the main engines running at maybe 60% of full power, enough to get us home." John nodded. That was better news than he had expected. Half the ship's systems were still offline, including weapons, but that didn't matter much now. The war was over. "And the Nova cannon?" John asked. Pete's face grew serious. "Completely burned out. The power surge destroyed most of the internal components. It would take years to rebuild, even with Krell help." "Good," John said firmly. "I don't think we need any more superweapons for a while." He left the engine room and made his way to the medical bay. The ship's corridors were dimly lit, with emergency lighting still in use in many areas. Crew members nodded respectfully as he passed. In the medical bay, Dr. Sandra Martinez was checking on the last few injured crew members. Most had already been moved to the Earth ships for better treatment. "How are they doing?" John asked. Sandra looked up from her patient, a young engineer with bandaged hands. "They'll recover. Burns, broken bones, radiation exposure. Nothing we can't fix, given time." "And how are you holding up, Doctor?" Sandra gave a tired smile. "I've slept about 10 hours in the last week, but I'm not complaining. We're alive, which is more than I expected when you fired that modified cannon." John continued to the bridge, which was now a hub of activity. Mary was directing repair teams and coordinating with the Earth ships. Several Krell worked at stations that had been modified to accommodate their different body shapes. "Captain on the bridge," someone called out, and people paused in their work to acknowledge him. Mary walked over to him. "Good news, sir. Earth, Command has approved the peace treaty with the Krell. There will be a formal signing ceremony when we return." John looked at the Krell working on his bridge. Former enemies, now valued allies. It was amazing how quickly things could change when faced with a common threat. "What does the treaty include?" he asked. "Exchange of technology, scientific cooperation, mutual defense agreements," Mary listed, "and official first contact protocols to prevent any future misunderstandings." John nodded. "A silver lining to this whole mess. What about the new prison? Is it stable?" "According to the Krell, yes," Mary replied. "They've set up monitoring satellites around it, but they recommend moving it farther from Earth just to be safe." Greg called out from his partially repaired sensor station. "Sir, you might want to see this. We're picking up unusual readings from Mars." John moved to look at the screen. The red planet was visible, parts of its surface still blackened from the Nova cannon's attack. But there was something new. Small green spots appearing in the damaged areas. "What am I looking at?" John asked. "Life, sir," Greg said, wonder in his voice. "Plant life, growing in the areas that were transformed by our weapon. Nothing should be able to grow there, but something is." Zakrath, who had become the official Krell representative on the Vengeance, approached. "The Devourers feed on energy, but they also release it in different forms. What your weapon did to Mars created conditions where new types of life could begin. It is rare, but it has happened before." "So we accidentally terraformed parts of Mars?" John asked, amazed. "In a way," Zakrath replied. "The plants growing there are unlike anything on Earth. They have properties we do not yet understand." Lisa turned from communications. "Sir, Earth Command wants to know if they should send a research team to Mars." John thought for a moment. "Tell them yes, but with Krell advisors. Whatever's happening there, we should study it together." The next day, John stood in the ship's observation deck, looking out at the stars. The repairs were progressing. Soon they would be heading home, to an Earth forever changed by the events of the past month. Mary joined him carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to him, and they stood in comfortable silence for a while. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if we hadn't built the Nova cannon?" she finally asked. John sipped his coffee. "The Krell would have destroyed more of our colonies. We might have lost the war. Or if we somehow won, the prison might have broken open later, when we weren't there to fix it. Either way, I think things worked out as well as they could have. We got lucky," Mary said. "No," John replied. "We adapted. That's what humans do. We make mistakes. We learn from them. We move forward." The ship's intercom system crackled to life. "Captain Baker to the bridge. We're receiving a message from the Mars research team." John and Mary exchanged looks and headed back to the bridge. On the main screen, a scientist in an environment suit stood on the Martian surface. Behind him, strange plants with blue-green leaves grew from the blackened soil. "Captain Baker," the scientist said, excitement clear in his voice. "These plants, they're producing oxygen. Lots of it. And they're spreading rapidly. At this rate, parts of Mars could have a breathable atmosphere within a year." Murmurs of amazement swept through the bridge. Even the Krell seemed impressed. "It appears," Zakrath said, "that in trying to destroy, you have created instead. Perhaps that is why the Ancient Ones feared your kind. You change everything you touch." John looked at the image of Mars, at the green life spreading across its damaged surface. The Nova cannon had been built as a weapon of war, a tool of destruction, yet somehow it had led to creation as well. "Send all available data to Earth and the Krell homeworld," John ordered, "and prepare a landing site for a permanent research station." As the crew rushed to carry out his orders, John Baker, captain of humanity's most powerful warship, thought about the strange journey that had brought them here. They had built a weapon that nearly destroyed them, fought a war based on misunderstanding, and accidentally released an ancient evil. Yet they had also made new allies, contained the threat, and now might have found a way to give humanity a second home among the stars. It wasn't the mission they had started with. But sometimes, John thought, watching humans and Krell working together to chart a new future, the best journeys were the unexpected ones.